Hi you, welcome to the final module of the course Introduction to CEFR for Teaching. Throughout the course, you have learned about applying CEFR in teaching in general and in different skills, namely reading, listening, writing, and speaking in particular. In this final module, we hope to help you use the understanding of the CEFR to plan a lesson. Alright, the first videos will be about using the vocabulary provided at lectuto.ca to analyze and edit the vocabulary of a text to make it appropriate for your class. Now, watch the videos about how to use the website. So, you just watch the tutorial of using Lectuto's website to analyze the vocabulary of a text. You can use the website to see whether the vocabulary is appropriate for your students' levels and then make the necessary changes. Thank you and goodbye for now.
Good morning, Dade County ESL faculty and staff at Miami-Dade College. My name is Tom Cobb. I'm a professor of education in Montreal at a French-speaking university and designer, developer, maintainer of the Lexical Tutor website. As some of you may know, I'm making this screencast because I'm coming to give some workshops and a talk to you, some of you, in the next few days. And so this is just so that you'll have an advance organizer of what I'm going to talk about. I met Michelle Thomas, one of your colleagues at Sunshine State TESOL in Orlando not long ago. And she invited me to come and pass on some ideas, and especially hands-on ideas, and maybe a framework for developing computer tools. So here it is. I'm very excited by what's going on in your college. The whole idea of strategies to increase college graduation is something that interests me, as well as degree completion by design. I think that's what you call it. I think that academic success is largely a matter of reading. Reading is largely a matter of vocab, and vocab is best handled with some kind of computational approach. Just because there's so much vocab, it's very hard to keep track of if you don't do some word crunching with a computer. So that's basically where I'm coming from. What I'm going to talk to you about today, or I'm going to show you, is just some of the routines that I've developed for academic reading, and some of the ones that are most popular on my website, which I think you can see in front of you. It's the Complete Lexical Tutor. It's a kind of visual mess because it's grown over the years, and I've never moved anything so that people don't get lost who are long-time users. It's basically divided into a section for learners, a section for researchers, and a section for teachers, although these are sort of arbitrary distinctions because anybody uses anything. It's a website that gets a lot of use, so I'll just click on my statistics routine. And there you see that, okay, today we're just climbing up, but it's sort of 10, 11, and 12,000 pages per day delivered, which is quite a bit for an applied linguistics education site, I think. I don't know how much other ones get. I've been working on this idea of improving academic performance ever since about the mid-90s or late 90s. When I was working in the Middle East, and colleges out there were trying to run in English, but of course the students didn't have enough English. So I've always found that computing was a way to figure out what they knew, deliver what they needed, and I'll show you a bit of what I'm talking about as we go. This talk will be first some examples, and then back up to a little bit of the sort of whys and wherefores, philosophy, and things like that. So it's basically a sampling of what I'll have you learn how to use when I come to see you. So academic reading, assuming that we're giving students texts to read that are pretty difficult for them, One of the things that I'm most interested in is using the resources of the web as a tool when students are reading. Just to give you an example of what I'm talking about, over here I have a routine called hypertext, which basically links a text that a teacher or a student enters. There are numerous versions of this program. Hypertext 2 is the one that I'm most interested in lately. It's sort of a second generation of this concept. The basic idea is that you put a text in here and you click the button and it builds a text which is linked to a dictionary and to speech and to other things. Or you can also link it to a sound file. For example, down here is an MP3 sound file which corresponds to a text that I found on the Voice of America. I think it's called Easy English or something like that. You choose a dictionary, so suppose, for example, I wanted to choose English to Spanish, as might be the case with you and your learners. I choose a voice for the text-to-speech routine, so US, UK, so leave it at US. And then just click Build, and the machine puts this all together as this. So that's the text, and people can read it. They can listen to it over here. So it's kind of jazzy.
Quincy Jones is co-producer of one of the best-selling music albums of all time.
So the idea is that it's the same. People can read and listen, which is, of course, a very powerful learning operation. I've got research on that to show you if you're interested. So they can read along, they come to a word that they're interested in, and they can look it up. So best-selling in Spanish is muy vendido. And, or if they want to see how that particular word is pronounced, they can just click on speech selection. Okay, so, and then one of the recent things I've done just in the last couple of weeks is expand this operation. So
One of the best-selling.
So that it does any number of words. I'm afraid there's a character max to it. Students are always, or teachers and students are telling me all the time what they want this program to do that it doesn't do already. And one of the things the teachers have told me is that the students will stop reading to write down words that they are interested in as they go. So I made a little extra feature here where if you hold down the Alt key or the Option key on a Mac, you can click, double click that word, and it goes into the word box up here. So we'll put a few in there, and so on. So these might be the words that they've looked up, or just words they're interested in. They can read the text. Basically, it's a system for just reading with these resources linked, and where they are unlikely to feel they have to stop and write down words, because they can just click them into this box, and then they can highlight them and take them away. When they finish reading, those words will be there. Those are the words they looked up, and those are the words that got speech. And maybe I've got those reversed, but like I say, everything on this website is in progress. And so I'll go back to there, and research shows that if people meet words in texts in a natural way, and then do exercises involving those words, that this is a very good learning strategy. So, for example, I've got my words here, so I'm going to send these to one of these activities here, which are just activities elsewhere on LexTutor. So those words will be sent off to this thing called Dictator. Okay, so Dictator, you
Single.
You hear the word, you try to spell it. Okay, so I've written singular there, and the program tells me how much of it was right. It gives me a little percentage. And if I took out the U of singular and clicked again, it would say that much, and now I've got 83%. So it's a little activity just to practice
Sold.
writing those words, and once people have practiced it in this format, they can do it as a test, so a different mode to that program. Another activity is to send the word to a concordancer. Okay, so for example, multi-concordance is, so those are the same three words again. These can be reviewed now, since this could be done somewhat later. And the basic idea here is that a small concordance has been given for each of the words. So they have met the word in one context, they now transfer it to another context. So I read the lines down the middle here. It's the same word that goes into all those lines. The something shot would come. I guess single is the one. So the object is for the learners to look at numerous contexts and see if single fits into all of them, and they choose it and it goes. And they can do it again with a new randomization from the corpus where these examples come from. It keeps score, so it's a bit of a game, and it has an accumulative score, so people can play against themselves or play against a friend. And the final activity is a similar one to that, except that they have to find the word in a jumble, so it works on both meaning and form, so basically like that. Or so a tsunami is not a single wave. So as you see in these two contextualized concordance activities, so this is a concordance, the same word multiple times out of a corpus, that they will meet the word in numerous contexts, which is always the problem with word learning. They don't meet the word in enough contexts. So that's basically that routine. So I'm going to go back to home. That's one approach to a difficult text for learners. Another approach is for them to look up words and enter them into a group database. So this group database is called GroupLex. A teacher or a student can add, so these are the students who are currently entered into this database. There are about 300 of these GroupLexes sort of roaming around the world. This one has 700 words in it, so it can handle, a book's worth or whatever. The basic thing is that students add an entry from whatever they're reading, or the teacher can do this for them, or they can get a dictionary entry. So for example, if I'm trying to enter the word cat, I can get a dictionary entry for cat just by clicking there. The problem is that this will allow students to copy-paste. So for example, if I copy-paste here and put that away and try to put it into the definition over here, you can see that it's 100 characters maximum and the whole definition will not go through. The point of this is to require people to find what is in the definition that's important, not just to paste in a mile of stuff. The same for the example. As you see, this little thing here is keeping track of how many letters I've put in. When a word, an example, a word class, and a definition have been chosen, then the student chooses what group they're in. It could be by group like this, arts, commerce, etc., or it could be chapter 1, chapter 2 of a book, or boys and girls. It could be anything. And then of course the name, and enter it. They preview before they enter in case there are mistakes and they want to go back. Okay, so supposing that all of this has happened, then the teacher can come along and find out, for example, what the arts group has done or what Tom has done. So for example, here's Tom, and you can see, for example, from the dates. Okay, so this is me because I use this as my own test thing. So here is the last date that I entered, so the teacher can quickly check what I've been doing, if anything. It's kind of nice. Out here we have a method of speaking the whole sentence.
That tomcat is out there howling again.
So that's pretty well said. These are
We should insure the barn.
text-to-speech has really come along in the last, I don't know how many years. The most favored option with this is to quiz the words. So people can choose over here a random 10 or the top 10 or any 20 or anything like that, and then give themselves a quiz. So this is the quiz. There are many who will work hard to something these goals. Okay, so probably it's going to be acquire, which isn't exactly right, but pretty close. Yeah. No correct answers. Oh, well, maybe it's a little harder than I thought. Hard to Achieve. Pardon me, I didn't see it. Yep. So the answer is, of course, the students will check every time they've entered an answer. Okay, so that's, and when they've completed this, they can once again send this on to another activity. Some of those concordance-based activities that I showed you before, where they have to transfer the word, this time from their own context to another context. So this is a very popular program. Many people are using it right now. For the teacher also, you can extract the word list that the students looked up. Here's a research paper. A lot of LexTutor has got research papers attached right to it. When teachers want to make a quiz which is not interactive, for example, they want to choose any 20 words from what the students have been working on, they can choose print instead of interactive, and there's a nice quiz which can be copy-pasted into a Word document for the week's words or whatever. And of course you can sort these by date. So if I sort by date, I can get all the most recent words. So if I took the top 10 of those with print and top 10 and then make quiz, bingo, there are the 10 most recent words so that I can. So Group Lex is a pretty powerful thing. It's like you could probably find programs like this on the web. I don't know. I don't go look and see anymore because I'm too busy with these ones. Another one you can do is a closed passage. For example, the Quincy Jones text as a closed passage. Here's one. Yeah, so for example, there's that same Quincy Jones thing, but it's been made into a closed passage. So I have some options here. I'm going to make it N-word. I'm going to make it every say 20th word, 16th word, and I'm going to put in all these prepositions to block. So I don't want them to do prepositions, or I could have them just do prepositions. Okay, so here we have then, those are the words that have been taken out, all content words, and the job of the students is to put them back in. This is a multiple choice system, not just all the words that have been taken out, but so it earned Jones Jackson the, I guess, Grammy for album, right? So I can check it up here. And something that teachers have asked me to do is to keep the check button out of the scrolling area so that the students can always get it, because, as I say, they always will check every time they make an entry. And these, once again, are definitions, adversity, whatever, so that people can review the words that have been chosen for this activity. Okay, so that's kind of fun stuff, but how do we know if this is a difficult word for our students? So we're saying that this is a hard text, they need a dictionary attached to it and sound and everything attached to it. How do we actually know this is the case? Well, we're always going to be guessing when it comes to our students' vocabulary levels or reading ability levels in general. But a system that I've developed for finding the I+1 of our students' reading lexicons is to, well, let me first of all describe you based on something I've shown you already. This is Group Lex again. This is that extract list of all the words that have been submitted by the users. This is a public site, so it's anybody doing anything, including me. So there are all those words. So there are 700 words. There's a button up here that says Send to VP. VP is a vocab profiler, which will tell us the frequency of all these words. And then we can see if our learners are at a similar frequency level, or what their frequency level is. And this is broken down into 1,000 and 2,000 frequency lists. So for example, the is obviously a very frequent word. It'll be in the most frequent 1,000 words for sure. Whereas afternoon probably is as well, but what about ablaze and abruptly? We don't really know. So are these words our students should be worrying about or not? So when I click this button, it sends it off to an analysis routine, which comes up here. And the analysis routine shows us the frequency levels of all these words in this format. So 28% were from the first 1,000. and so on. So that's pretty interesting. That's what the text looks like as a whole text, with all the different frequency levels at a different color. That's, by the way, the reason that LexTutor has black in it, because this was one of the most highly used routines and requires a black background. So you see that a word like achieve is blue. Well, that means it's a 1000 level word. And then a word like building also is that same blue. But conflict is a 3000, I believe, and of course red is a word that is right off the scheme. The scheme is 20,000 levels, but okay. And Dracula, of course, is obviously a proper noun. Flabbergasted is sort of a joke word or something, although maybe not. Google, clearly. Now, so what does this give us? This breakdown by 1000 levels is quite interesting, because if we know the learner's level, then we can use that 1000 scheme to find texts that are roughly at their level. So I'm going to go back to the main home page and then go to test. These are a series of vocabulary tests, most of which give a score. And this one here, the size test, 1 to 14K, is based on those exact same frequency 1000 bands that that vocab profile uses. So this is the test. It's a sampling of 10 words, multiple choice format, from the first 1000, from the second 1000, and so on, all the way down to the 14th 1000. So you get words like marsupial, auger, erythrocyte, so words that are on the edges of sort of medicine and other technical domains. So when a student takes this test, and of course the teacher can give it to them on the computer, they get a score like this. So I haven't done anything, so I'm 0. It gives a diagnosis down here. Your vocabulary size is so many words you should start work at. So obviously if I put nothing, I should start at 1000, K01. And the teacher can choose a print version of this to run it as a PDF. This test was made by my colleague in New Zealand called Paul Nation. I guess we don't really need to see it. It's going to be slow. Anyway, it comes. So if you know that your students are strong at the first 1000 but are faltering at the second 1000, so suppose they get 100%, 10 out of 10 at the first 1000, 5 out of 10 at the second 1000, 3 out of 10 at the third 1000, then you know what kind of text they're going to find challenging and what kind of text they're going to find pretty easy. Okay, so let's go to vocab profile directly, not via the alternate interface. Okay, so here is the vocab profile entry page, where once again there's a box to put a text in. Okay, so I'm going to put in a text from, okay, so it's a legal text. So this is likely to be a fairly difficult text. And I'm going to choose this framework, which is a new framework based on British and American, so British National Corpus and the Contemporary Corpus of American English, developed at Brigham Young just in the last year. 25,000 lists, kind of described over here if you want to do some research before we meet. And that will take this text and chop it into the bands. Okay, so here is the text, and we can see that 73% is from the first 1000, 16% is from the second 1000, and then 5%, 2%, and 3% from 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so that means that this is going to be a very difficult text for our learners. They're only strong at the first 1000, but there are 16% at the second 1000. So they are going to be, suppose they know all the first 1000, that's going to give them 73%. Okay, let me give you another text. This is a text from a Canadian writer. Okay, so there is the profile of that text. And once again, you can see that it's 81% first 1000, but then 7% second thousand, 2% third thousand, and that overall there's about 20% of the text which is beyond our learners' capacity. Now, research shows that 5% is the maximum. 5% is the maximum that our learners can cope with. So this is way too hard. So that's a text that if for some reason they had to read this text, so that's the text, if for some reason they had to read this text, that would be a text that would be put with a dictionary and a sound file if possible. Whereas it wouldn't be good, for example, an extensive reading text. However, if this text was put in, this is a text written by children. Okay, so at 92% first thousand, that would mean that for our students who are strong at first thousand, this is a text that they could cope with. There would be some words they might not know, but they would be less than 5% of the total text, which would be okay. By the way, you see that a lot of those hard words are actually proper nouns. Cornelius and a word like home runs, which is only hard because it's a compound and not part of the system. So using vocab profile and the testing system, we can find ways to match learners and texts and then decide if a text is for extensive reading, it's within their zone, they can cope with it, or it requires resourcing like group lex or hypertext or closed passage work or something like that. So that's a bit of the why and the wherefore. I'll show you lots of other things, but that's the core of Lex Tutor. I think that's enough for now. I've showed you about 5 or 6 things in a half an hour. So if you look at this screencast a few more times, then you'll be ready to roll when I get there. Okay, well, from Montreal, where a beautiful autumn day is underway, unseasonably warm, not as warm as Florida, I guess. Thanks, and I'll see you soon.